You're listening to UNITEDWESTRIKE.com radio. Don't buy, don't comply. That's why. UNITEDWESTRIKE.com radio.
Welcome back to United We Strike Radio Marathon, the very first one of 2011, the fifth marathon broadcast that we have had with outstanding guests and hosts. Folks, this is just the best radio, and I am honored and privileged to be part of it. And now I am also honored and privileged to introduce to you a woman who I met some years ago, who has survived cancer, who has researched extensively into the health field, and who I call a soul sister, who is just a wonderful friend of mine. She has a website, exposium.com, that's with a Z, exposium.com, and also UNITEDWeLight.com, which is near and dear to my heart. And as its owner, Vickie Barker, welcome to United We Strike.
Oh, thank you, Karen, and I just want to welcome everybody. I've been tuned in most of the day here, and United We Strike Radio has given so many a platform now so that we can really get down to the work at hand. And believe me, you see it coming up from everywhere. Did we drop?
No, sorry,
Okay.
I hit the mute button there. We are in challenging times, but one of the things that is a big challenge for all of us is our health. And Vickie, I know that you are much more knowledgeable in that field than I am, so I would like to just kind of back away and hand it over to you. I will be here listening, and if you'd like me to chime in, I'm happy to, but I want to get out of your way because you've got a lot to share and a lot to say, and I'm happy that you've got this opportunity to do so.
And I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, and I think that UNITEDWeStrike.com, that whole promotion is something that is timely. And here we are in 2011. We've got a lot of things on our plate. Families around the world are suffering, but this is a year for solutions. And for some reason, I think I'm still live, so I'm going to keep talking till I get a prompt from somebody. And I look
No, you're
at
okay, Vickie. You're still going good.
Okay.
You carry on.
Very good, thank you. And as I think of a quote from Margaret Mead when I think of this group, and that was the one she said, "Never doubt that a small group of committed people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." And I've watched this small group of people grow out of just an idea that Karen had a few years ago, and it quickly turned into an intent, and it was a very strong intent. And this is what we see today is what we have, that we've been given a platform now that we can bring all of these solutions. We've got so many great high-performance work teams is what I call them out there. I've listened to the shows today, and people that are working their hearts and lives and putting every bit of effort into the solution, and now having a platform like United We Strike Radio to give us a platform to bring us all together, a place where we can share. I have families, friends all over the world, and a lot of them, most of them here in this nation. And I know some of the things they're going through, and you sit and you think and you wonder, how can I help each and every one of them learn, just like I've had to learn, without going through all of the hurdles and the mountains to climb and the setbacks, and this platform is going to make that possible. So I really encourage everyone listening in, jot down these websites, the dates, the second Tuesday of every month, because this is going to be our lifeline, folks. The folks we've had on earlier, Cheryl Honey with her program of community weavers, this is something very near and dear to my heart. And I think just pulling together, we can, in fact, get some information out there that's going to change this world around. It's kind of like the saying, you tell me and I forget, you teach me and I remember, but if you involve me, I learn. And this is what we need to do, is involve people at every level. Catherine Bleish, as she was talking about, involving the people in your community, your leaders in your community. Get them involved. Get to know them. See what resources we do have available. 2011 is the year of not just awakening, but of awareness. And we have to keep lifting that awareness. We're carrying the torch here for a whole generation of children that otherwise really don't have a chance unless something is done. So we have to become the change we want to see. And this is what we're going to see happening in 2011. And Karen spoke of my background in health, and it has been a background in health. And basically throughout for my own selfish needs was to save my life. When I was given a diagnosis and said I had 3 to 5 years to live, that was a wake-up call for me. And that was in the mid-90s, around 95. And I had a decision to make. I had 5 children at home. Their father had already been killed up in the Bering Sea. So I knew that if what that doctor told me was right, that my children, most of them being still very young, the 5 of them, they would grow up to be orphans. I knew my family that were in California would definitely take them in and try to help, but they'd still be separated and they'd lose that family unity. So that weighed real heavy on my heart. But one of the things that led me to that point that got me in that condition was the simple lack of knowledge. I worked for a period of time for the state government. I was an executive principal manager. I had a district. I was responsible for $22 million every 2 years. And throughout the course of that, I learned a lot of things that really I didn't realize I'd learned them until I started waking up and started realizing what was truly going on in this nation, and realized that what got me there being so sick in the first place was I had actually had good health insurance because, yes, I was a state employee, good bucks, good benefits, and great health insurance. And I went to a doctor because I had a headache. And it was really nothing more than an annoyance looking back at it in comparison to what I went through in the very next few years. The doctor had given me some pills for my headache. My headache seemed to subside, although a lot of other things started happening. And in the course of that year, my health had degenerated. The prescriptions had increased in numbers and in strength. And I was looking at some new diagnoses being given me. From that simple headache, I went to TMJ, sinusitis, chronic fatigue syndrome. I was given more pills, more drugs. By the next year, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. These things like the fibromyalgia, I was beginning to be told that, these are permanent. This is something, there's no cure for fibromyalgia. But still, there was more pills and more testing. Nuclear medicine is just amazing, some of the things they can do with the human body. But what I didn't know is what it was doing to the human body. And as my condition continued to deteriorate over the next year, of course, more pills, more testing, I ended up with multiple sclerosis. And that's when the diagnosis came that I had 3 to 5 years to live. And in looking at the picture, I realized I wasn't the only one going through this. What I had watched through my budget, remember that $22 million. Now, I was in charge of a district which was the largest district area-wise in the state. But the important thing to know is it was the smallest population. And 80% of that budget was going to health care costs for these families that we were serving. And so it wasn't just myself going through health care problems. I could see and I could relate to the community and the families there. They were also struggling with health care issues. And I think when it got to the point where I realized 3 to 5 more years on one hand, continuing to see the doctor, taking the medications, feeling as bad as I did, and watching my children watch me deteriorate, I had to make a decision. And that decision was I was going to take responsibility for myself. I explained to the doctor I'm taking myself off of all of this. Some days I didn't even know where I was, didn't know who I was. So his challenge to me was that, well, if you go off these medications, you're going to die. And I kind of quickly came back with, well, that's pretty much what you told me already, and we might as well just get on with it because I don't intend to just suffer like this and continue on. Well, that led me into a field from medical mainstream into what we know as alternative health care. And folks, the big difference was that the things in the alternative health care system that I had to find on my own, there was no doctors, there was nobody there telling me these things, what I needed to do. I had to begin researching. And I encourage everyone, if anyone's ailing in a family, is do your own research, start digging, start finding out what are some of the side effects that this drug might be causing, that now the doctor's prescribing this medicine for, when maybe if I just stopped the first one, I wouldn't need the second and the third and the fourth. It's becoming responsible for ourselves. I do classes called Study Thyself, Heal Thyself. It simply means ontology. It was coined by a phrase by Dr. E.R. Morris back in 1903. Dr. Morris began to see the effects of what mainstream medical, the direction they were taking. He was one of the first ones that recognized the importance of people having information of how dangerous the vaccinations were. And this is way back in 1903, folks. So the challenge has been there. It's just that we've been programmed to look at things inside that box. And part of what tonight is, other than celebrating this wonderful day of the kickoff of 2011 with United We Strike Radio, is also a debut for a program that hopefully in the near future we'll have this in place where It Is Here Now is going to be the name of the program, because I've been a researcher for 12 years, generally about 16 to 18 hours a day many times, depending on kind of the catastrophes that are facing the families that I'm dealing with at the time. But we put together an entire program. It's an education program. The education program is free to anyone that wants to tune in to start taking back some of that control. And some of the important things I want to cover here about what we've found through the program. The bottom line begins to appear for a lot of people. We are now a collective unit of over 5,000 people that have truly put this to the test. And bottom line here is that we've been lied to. Our families have been lied to. Our families, our children are the ones that are suffering the consequences of these lies. But we have to move beyond that. Otherwise, we get caught up in the fact that it makes us angry. We're very angry that this has happened. I was very angry for a period of time that so many of my family members died of cancer. And now we know, because of the experience over the years that our researchers are discovering, there's no reason for anyone to die of cancer. It is such a very simple thing to get rid of once you understand it. And the things that, there's three important facts that we've boiled everything down to. Every time we had a challenge of a new so-called disease name, let me back up just a minute, because through my health, when I began to recover, I found that the alternative healthcare system was in place. A lot of the herbs did take care of a lot of the problems that I was having, but I still was not able to get myself back to where my body would heal. What alternative health was doing was helping me sustain myself without a lot of the side effects, but my body was still not truly healing because I'd never addressed the cause until the day I met a gentleman named Barney Folger. And hopefully throughout the broadcasts in the future with the It Is Here Now, I'll have him on to help explain some of the hurdles, some of the insights that we've learned from the scientific community. Science is just an amazing thing, folks. What science has done for me is science has proven to me that, yes, there is a God, and He created the human body perfectly. He created this planet perfectly. And I don't think anything could be more important right now than the United We Strike platform to be able to start pulling some things together to truly help this world. This nation is going through crisis, but these other countries are also suffering. And it all boils down to the same things, the money, power, and greed. And we all know that. We're all angry about it. But we can't change them. But we can take away the resources that continually promote them being able to do what they do to us. Now, the three important facts that we've learned in boiling things down is this. The first thing we learned was that most families in the United States and around the world, and in fact, most licensed healthcare providers, they've been primarily educated throughout their lives, our lives, with what's become quite familiar, and that's the medical mainstream healthcare system. And many people don't realize this, but the medical mainstream healthcare system here in the United States is limited to the use of chemicals, radiation, and surgery. What that means is if you go in because you're having a cold, or you have cancer, or you have diabetes. The doctors are only permitted by law to give you solutions if it is chemical, which is your prescription drugs, radiation, or surgeries. Now, most people didn't know this. I didn't know this. I didn't know there was a Senate bill back in 1996, I believe it was, that was passed that stipulated the very fact that if a doctor, a licensed physician in the United States, if he was to tell his patients anything outside of chemical drugs, radiation, or surgeries, he could lose his license and go to prison for 7 years. And that didn't make sense. At that time, I was still working for the government. And these little things kept popping up that just absolutely did not make any sense. I think one of the things that we've lost as a people as a whole is common sense, logic. And this is what we hope to get back, if we can just spark a tiny little spark in folks to make them question just one thing. And this is what everyone's doing here on the second Tuesday of every month, is we're getting the messages out there, not telling people what they should and shouldn't do, but hoping to spark that one question that lies within them. And if they seek the one question and get one answer, sometimes that's all it takes, if we can just know one thing. And so we're working very hard, putting these shows together. What's coming up on the agenda, the schedule in the coming weeks, I'm sure, as Karen gets all this pulled together. And bless your heart, Karen, you've done such a fantastic job to have your own broadcasting network now. It makes it so easy, and you've got some really, really good people. I was so impressed with the folks today, and I do know that you're going to be getting those up in the archive soon, and people will be able to click in there, listen to those, and folks, promote it out there. Use the resources we have. We've got the Internet now, and if anybody's out there and you're not using the Internet to even get on a social network, those are great. I've drugged my heels the whole time being dragged into these things. I just feel this identity thing is so important, but I've got something to say, and I don't care who in the world hears me say it, because I know what I'm saying is based on sound science, and it comes from the heart, just like all the other folks on this call. So the first thing we learned was medical mainstream pretty much has their hands tied, okay, regardless. If they wanted to help, they really couldn't. Now, the second area was the alternative healthcare community. Now, I spent a couple of years with the alternative healthcare. And like I said, the simple applications, the remedies, they offered relief of my symptoms. They weren't causing further harm to my body or to my body's own ability to heal itself. However, that ability had already been compromised. So I really couldn't step too far outside of that box, because I was still very limited in what I could do. I couldn't shower for myself. I couldn't cook my own meals. I had to encourage my children to spend a lot of time taking care of me. And if anything breaks your heart more than that, I just can't imagine what it is to watch those children give up their time and have to worry about their mother and have to take care of their mother. And it should have never happened, and it shouldn't be happening to millions of families. And we want to help everyone get back on your feet. One of my favorite songs and favorite people was Bob Marley and his Get Up, Stand Up, one of his last songs that he did. And, that's where we're at today. We need to get up and stand up and realize nothing's going to change until we make that change. And the third here, to quickly get into the scientific community, just to give people here, because I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this. We have so many things that we do want to share. I feel like tonight being a debut, I don't really have to stay right on focus, because there's so many things to toss out there to folks that somebody's going to bite into something that's going to help them, and you'll walk away. I always hope that people walk away from any of my calls, lectures, or broadcasts with at least one thing that they can put into action. The third thing being that there is a scientific health community. Now, not many people know about this community. We wonder why. When you start talking about people like Otto Warburg, Hans Niebuhr, H.E. Satori, Keith Brewer, people look at you like, well, who are they? These were some of the greats, folks. These were people that were actually, their work was scrutinized around the world, and they actually got Nobel Prizes back when the Nobel Prize still had some integrity. And these are men that, when they looked at their work, the scientists around the world, the doctors around the world, looking at the work and had to make a decision. These are the ones that were actually awarded the Nobel Prize for what they discovered. And they actually felt in their heart that this was something that they could offer the world to make the world a better place. But what happened? Okay, that kind of information has to do with health. Unfortunately, folks, there's a monopoly on the health industry. So there was never a vehicle that allowed this information to actually get to your family, actually get to your doctors, or actually get to your schools. So this is where I intend to spend the rest of my life, and pretty well dedicated most of everything I do, is to helping people learn about the scientific health community. Science is 100%, not the pseudoscience that they're playing games with in the labs for the FDA and the pharmaceuticals. Science, true science is 100%. That means if it works one time and you use the same exact application again and again and again, it's going to work 100% each and every time. So we found that the application of the facts and findings from the scientific health community actually provided us with the knowledge of how to actually help the bodies heal themselves. Now, can you see that there's a big relationship here to what happens if we do teach everyone? What if they do know? Okay, we found the reason that this community's not been readily available to healthcare professionals and families for over 100 years. There's a book written, I've got a link to it on exposium.com. I encourage everyone to go to exposium.com. That's exposium with a Z.com, and sign up for the newsletter. I'll be sending out some special reports. We're going to be building that website as we go. You know, we all know we're in a new year here, and things are coming so hard and so fast that the efforts and work, I've got a lot of websites, a lot of web pages and websites, domains. And what I found out over the course of the years is I'd throw this research up on there, and then within a month or two it'd be obsolete. It's like the cancer. I worked very hard in the beginning because I didn't want to learn the computers. I wanted to move myself out of that whole net and just live peacefully, get my life back, spend time with my children. But I was drawn back. It was more of a divine will because I had to come back. I had to learn how to make these computers work. I had to learn what kind of a resource, what kind of a useful tool could this be to help me get my message out. So I had to learn, and I built many, many websites, many web pages. I would check with the Cancer Society, the American Cancer Society, and I'd get the statistics, and I'd put them on the pages. And in the beginning when I got this straight from the American Cancer Society, it was I wanted to know how many people we could anticipate being affected with cancer. And my answer was, well, 1 in 6 people. 1 in 6 people will get cancer at some point in their lifetime. So I built a web page. I work with a very wonderful researcher. He is also the founder of Advanced Scientific Health. Advanced Scientific Health is an education program. It's the free education program I was talking about. We have live lectures that we provide for people. We have questions and answers, a website. We have a plethora of information to share. But what this man did was put it together in a package so everyone could easily understand it, because we believe that's everyone's right. You were given that right to good health. It's the people themselves we've messed it up because we weren't very good stewards with what we were given. But it is an answer, and it's an answer for the well-being of all human bodies, and it's now available. Sign up at exposium.com, exposium.com. There's a little place there. Just give your name and email. It goes no farther than myself. But what this will do, it will get you in line to get current information as we're dealing with things. Back to the American Cancer Society, the reason I need to have something that's more fluid, because when they said 1 in 6, I did the page and I moved on. We moved on into heart disease. We moved into clogged arteries, cholesterol, trying to debunk a lot of the things that mainstream was saying about cholesterol and all this. And so we moved ahead. Well, 18 months later, I was asked to update a bunch of my pages with some new things, and so I called the American Cancer Society back. And I said, okay, I'm updating pages. I need to know now. I want to get these facts right. Well, 18 months later, it was 1 in 4 people. So I grudgingly went in and I learned how to redo my codes, and I redid the codes on there and updated the page. Well, another 18 months had went by, and it was time to once again update because we started finding out that no one, absolutely no one, needs to be sick with things like Parkinson's and MS, because we were starting to get reports back from people that were applying the knowledge, and within 3 weeks You know, we had people that had suffered with Parkinson's for 17 years. And in a matter of 3 weeks, they were calling us saying, gosh, you know, the jitters are gone. I'm not shaky. I can sleep all night. We had reports from that man's doctor saying, if I didn't know that he'd had Parkinson's, I'd have never believed it. Okay, these things kept happening. And so we continually began updating our web pages. And so I called the American Cancer Society up again and contacted them. Okay, what's going on now? Well, now it's jumped to 1 in 2.5 people, folks. Now, I've been doing research. I started 12 years ago into the scientific community with Barney Folger. We've worked very close with a lot of biochemists, a lot of scientists, a lot of insider doctors. And we've learned a lot of things. And now what we need to do is be able to get this information out there to those that are suffering. This is the people that need it the most. And we can very easily see why the scientific community never had that vehicle. Because the universities are funded by the pharmaceutical companies. They certainly don't want people to know. And the one thing that really caught me was when I learned some things that I know that you and I both, had we learned this in 4th grade, our lives would be totally different about the body, about health, about healing. And I want to share that with you tonight. And I can go more in depth with the reports that I'll be sending out through exposium.com. When you sign up there, you will get onto a list where I can send these reports out. It's too much to be able to even put on a web page at this time because it is just an enormous amount of information. But what we've done is boil things down to keep it very simple. I think it was Einstein that said, if you can't explain something simple, you don't know enough about it. And if it's health, believe me, folks, my team of researchers and myself, we have discovered a lot about health, and it's a lot of things that every family needs to know. Every physician needs to know. We have now a family advocate program because one of the things we did find early on is that when families are dealing with a catastrophe of someone being sick, it's not just that person that's suffering. The entire family is suffering. The one thing, though, to take away from this call, jot it down, and in some of your spare time is look this up. There was an enzyme the human body at one time at creation, it was able to produce. Okay, it has a very long name. There's no sense in even putting it out there because there's really very little information on this enzyme on the internet. But if you put in something called ascorbate and do a search on that, because what that little liver enzyme was able to do was that any time we consumed anything that had sugar, okay, now remember, we didn't always have all these fast food joints and this crazy food in the grocery stores. At one time, we were actually hunters and gatherers. So we have to think back. Okay, the human body worked perfectly back then. We were hunters. We were gatherers. How much sugar did we possibly eat? Right now, they estimate that the average consumer eats 65 pounds of sugar a year. Good Lord, think of a 65-pound bag and think of consuming that. Think of your child consuming that. It comes in all sorts of flavors and colors and textures. So just be aware that all carbohydrates are sugar. Okay, at the scientific level, it's all sugar. So thinking back to the hunters and gatherers, you know, we may have consumed an apple, something that had sugar. Well, that liver enzyme would immediately take that sugar, okay, because the human body, the blood only holds about a teaspoon of sugar, about a teaspoon and a half. A teaspoon more, that's death. A teaspoon less, that's death. So the human body has this mechanism of balance that through the pancreas and through the liver that it's able to keep that in balance. So any excess sugar coming in, the human body once had a liver enzyme that would go out there and take that sugar and convert it into something called ascorbate. Ascorbate, ascorbate. Very good area to research. The ascorbate, my question was then, well, what did it do? What did this ascorbate do? Well, everybody, just about 99% of the population suffers from something called hypoascorbemia. Okay? It's just a shot up from the disease that all the sailors used to get because they had no citrus fruits. Remember scurvy? Okay, we're just a step up from that because we do get a little bit in some of our food, the oranges, the lemons, the limes, okay, the citrus fruits, but we don't get near enough. And what those ascorbates did, when you have an ample supply of ascorbate, what ascorbate did in the human body was to take the cells and repair damages, to rebuild cells that were lost, and even more importantly for today's time, it removed toxins from the body. Okay? Very important. I pause there because I want that to sink in because it is so very important. We are walking garbage cans, folks. If you follow a child from the time they get up in the morning, especially if they're school age, where most parents don't realize that they don't have to have these children vaccinated. They can opt out of this. They just take it like it was a lollipop. Well, here, you got to get vaccinated. Okay? From the beginning of a baby's life in a hospital, they start shooting them up with toxins. And I do a lot of work with children because I figure if I can keep things at a 6th grade level or below, the children are the one we need to reach because they seem to have they're quick-witted and they can pretty much guess what's good and bad, and they haven't been so brainwashed like the rest of the adults. Okay? When you're working with an adult, many times you have to go through that unlearning process first before you can ever get to the meat, something that's going to save their life. You still got to back up, say, well, gee, did you know that MSG, that monosodium glutamate, that it's really a poison in your system? Do you know that it's filling up your cells so that the little mitochondria can't breathe? So we had to take it back to where people can quickly understand. So you picture a cell and you're thinking of all these toxic things that we're putting in day after day after day. Pretty soon those cells have a limited ability to breathe. And pretty soon when that oxygen level to the cells gets down 35%, folks, you know what that is? That's a cancer cell. And then we wonder, why is so many people sick with cancer? Okay, those two things are some really big tips for folks because those are the two things that I usually go into a family's home with first, is the fact that the body doesn't make its own enzyme to convert the sugar that you're eating into anything useful. So in other words, all it's doing is causing your body to become more acidic. I love the program earlier on today when the gentleman, I have his name written down here somewhere, and I'm going to get to know him a lot better. He's over in the UK right now, but he was talking about the hemp, okay, being able to take cannabis and actually get the oil out of the bud and use that. Something a little easier to do right now for a lot of people if, you just want to prevent this happening. You want to know that the food that they're feeding your children at school they're using hydrogenated oil, okay? These kids are just full of hydrogenated oil. What does that do? Well, it's not something the cells can use. So what it does is it coats the cell with this film. I don't know if you've ever ate some of those little donuts and you feel in your mouth there's just a coating of this thick. That's hydrogenated oil. That's an oil that has been cooked to a temperature that it makes it no longer valuable for a cell, a human cell to use. But the thing is, not only is it not healthy, it is detrimental because it's going through the body, through the system, through the blood, and it's collecting on the outside of the cells. Now, when the outside of the cellular wall becomes smooshed over with this stuff, the little mitochondria can't breathe anymore. Okay? Now, here's what we found. Through Joanna Budwig and Otto Warburg, we found out how to quickly get rid of cancer cells, okay? Most people can get this done in 30 days or less. Sometimes it takes maybe 6 weeks because they don't have all the pieces of the puzzle. They're still drinking aspartame. They're not drinking enough water. They're not getting out in the sun. They lack vitamin D. There's many reasons that will postpone it a few weeks. But generally within 30 days, the cancer cells are dead. Well, one of the things we have to realize is when Otto Warburg got that Nobel Prize, he did it because he discovered that cancer cells are anaerobic, okay, which means oxygen will kill them. But the trick is getting the oxygen into the cell to turn the pump off, okay, so that it can't feed on more sugar. The most sugar in the body when somebody has cancer, it's the sugar that's sitting inside those cells because that's what a cancer cell will do. Okay, it'll build its own set of blood vessels just to go out and hunt for more sugar. So even that little bowl of oatmeal that most people think are so good for them, that oatmeal is carbohydrate. Carbohydrate is sugar. So what we found through the hemp oil and a lot of research, and I'm going to condense this down because I don't want to get into a big long lecture on it, which I really have a habit of doing when I get into health stuff, is that if you take hemp oil, okay, an organic cold-pressed hemp oil, and here I mention again divine guidance. I think the last 12 years of my life has been total divine guidance. I think that's what's put everyone on this call, in fact. But learning about what God has already given us, and then thinking back to the history of the hard time that cannabis has had showing itself to the public. Okay, it's always been pushed away as some sort of an illegal drug. It's, when people think of hemp oil, I get this question all the time. Well, wouldn't that make me high? No. Hemp oil is a seed. It comes from the seed. There's no THC. It's not going to make people high. But what it will do is possibly save your life. Because right now we are so full of hydrogenated oils from over the time. If you ever ate in a school cafeteria, you've still got that stuff clinging on in there. If your kids are eating at public schools, they're getting hydrogenated oil. Most of the foods that you buy in a grocery store are made with hydrogenated oils. Well, the important thing to know is that the body is very dependent on some essential oils. Correct essential oils, omega-3 and omega-6s in the right ratio, okay, the right proportion is very important to be able to allow the body's cells to not only clean off, but to be able to become like little oxygen sponges. And it does it very quickly. 1 tablespoon of hemp oil, okay, a day will reach every one of your hundreds of trillions of cells, and it just washes them off so they can breathe. Now, it does a lot of other good things, but that's where I focus because I realize we have to start at ground zero here. Okay, we've got a lot of people that are full of aspartame, they're full of MSG. Once they learn to get this stuff out of the system so the body can actually go on with a maintenance program instead of trying to always heal and get rid of things, okay, it has enough ascorbate, you oxygenate that body, you create an environment that will never host cancer cells. It will never host parasites, okay? It'll never host a cold virus, a herpes virus. We're affected with these things all the time. They enter the body. A cold virus will come into your body, okay? But normally nothing ever happens. Your body just gets rid of it. But when we get into a weakened state, we have a harder time. The body has a hard time getting rid of some of these things. So when people go around and tell me, oh, I caught the flu. No, you didn't catch the flu, okay? There was a flu bug. It got in your body. Your body was not at optimum levels, so it hung around, and now it's eating out the substance of the cells next to it. Now, if you would learn how to get that body and those cells into a correct balance, that flu virus will never be able to latch onto a cell. Your body will just flush it right on out with the rest of the garbage. It's that simple. It is that simple. We need to change the way we're thinking about disease. And I want to talk a little bit about the law of health and disease. And I feel like I'm rushed here because always before on radio, I've always had a commercial break coming up, and I know that if it's to be, it's up to me today, and there's not going to be any music to save me. So I'm going to quickly move on to the part that I want to give the meat, because this, folks, it is here now. And the information I'm sharing with you, it is here now. It's not just the problem out there of all these horrible diseases. It's like one in 160 children have autism or being diagnosed with autism. Then it jumped to 1 in 67, and I just saw a report just a few days ago, it's 1 in 57. That's a small neighborhood there, and you're going to have an autistic child. So, time is something that we really don't believe in much anymore, and it's just get up and go. We're in 2011. This is the age of awareness. We're aware, we're learning, let's get some action going. And the law of health and disease is so very simple, because just as there is a law of gravity, there's a law of relativity, a law of attraction, there's also the law of health and disease. Now, unfortunately, the law of health and disease, as we all know, is not being taken into consideration, nor is it being factored into any diagnosis, prognosis, medical treatment plan, or any procedure by the medical mainstream, or, unfortunately, by the alternative healthcare community. And I'm not putting down the alternative healthcare community. What I'm hoping is that they will look at the science and incorporate it into their knowledge base, because they have a vast amount of people out there that are having successes through the alternative community, but science is a way to help them get there quicker and be more self-sufficient that way. Neglecting the simple law of health and disease is the major contributor to the current healthcare crisis facing this nation. The numbers being diagnosed and suffering with degenerative diseases continues to rise. Increase in the cost of treating these so-called diseases also continues to rise. Now, when you say it's time to take a more logical approach, Science has given us the proof that the human body was created perfectly. The body was created to have specific elements, minerals, and enzymes available. Now, this is important, in the proper ratio, the correct form, and in sufficient supply. Okay? Now, I'm not talking about running down because the body's deficient in calcium, going down and buying a brand name calcium capsule or pill down at the local, even the health food stores, but the local Walmart. Because if you don't know what form you're using, you could be doing something that's detrimental to your kidneys and to other parts of your functioning body. So the correct form is very important. I'll use an example, calcium. Okay, a lot of folks are dealing with osteoporosis, the loss of their bones become porous. It's not a disease, for heaven's sakes. It's in reality, it just means that your bones have lost its elasticity. They're becoming very porous, very brittle, and it's only because of a lack of calcium, magnesium that is for bone growth. But calcium, so many people will walk down the aisle in Walmart and see this bottle of one of these name brand calcium pills, and they'll think they're doing some good. They go home, they take it. It's the wrong form. They're using something called calcium carbonate. Okay, baby infant formula. Another one. Check the label, folks. Become your own food and drug inspector. We can't count on these people. Okay, they're getting paid to do a job that they're not doing. We have to live with it. We have to deal with it until something can happen to dissolve that entire agency. They're there, accept it, go on with life. Find your way around. The solution is here. Find out what form is the proper form for the body. The proper form for the human body is calcium citrate. It's a calcium that actually works with your body, with the magnesium, synergistically. Okay, it doesn't cause calcium deposits. Doesn't cause kidney stones. In fact, what it does is dissolves kidney stones, dissolves bone spurs, because those are there only because you've introduced so much of the wrong calcium. Tums, wrong calcium. Milk, fortified, wrong calcium. Okay? The form, the ratio, and an ample supply. Most of the supplies that we get down here at the health food store, the little bottle says the RDA. Okay? Remember who's calling the shots there, folks. When the RDA, it comes from the tests and the labs and the clinical studies they do on all these poor little creatures that they use, okay? And they find out, well, geez, if you give a rat 65 milligrams of ascorbate, it seems to work pretty good. We're bigger than a rat, folks. Logic, common sense. Start asking questions. Who's doing these surveys? Who's giving us these clinical studies on RDA? 65 grams for vitamin C? Okay, vitamin C. Vitamin C is not really even a vitamin. It's a metabolite. Okay? We get so engrossed in these things through the education process that, it takes a while to unlearn some of the things we've learned. But an RDA, through science, for a human being of 150 pounds, is 3 to 10 grams a day, not 65 milligrams. We want to get tough. We want to clean our bodies up. We want to live longer. We don't want plaque in our bodies. Okay, we want to clean out the arteries. You got blood, might as well let it flow. The very simple things that we can do to adjust this will extend our lives, our quality of life, and it will also give something for our children, because what they're facing now is a world that we've never faced. We had a fairly good start. We didn't have genetically engineered food when we were growing up at school. Okay, we had good old meat and potatoes, usually out of the garden, or at least some local farmer that we would get our food from. Okay, now it comes from a place called Monsanto, the great overseer of the food supply. Okay, these are things that we have to pay attention to. These are the things we need to teach our young parents. Is that there are people out there that do not have our best interests at heart. And I think there are 3 facts there of learning that the scientific health community has never had that vehicle, knowing that now in today's time it does have the vehicle. And I encourage everyone to stay tuned to United We Strike Radio. We're going to have a lot of good things happening here. These are work teams that you've heard from today. These are people that are out there. They're doing the job. They're doing the research. And, unfortunately, this entire nation and entire world, we can't expect 360 million people here in the United States to jump on the bandwagon and be able to get in there and study science. This has been a full-time 12 years for me, folks. I've let my family go, and God bless them. They all recognize why I'm doing it. My children recognize I don't see some of my grandchildren. I've never met them. I will someday, of course. We'll all be together. But the thing is, there's things in this world that we've been called to do, and when you think of that little term, calling all angels, this is what I see with the United Strike radio team. They're all angels. These are people that have devoted their time, their effort, every ounce of time to research, to learn, to get the facts, because we know that 360 million people here in the United States don't have time. They're too busy out there trying to save their homes, save their jobs, put a roof over their head, find decent food to eat. Their hands, they're busy. These are busy people just trying to survive. And if we can help them through programs like the community weaving program that Cheryl Honey was talking about, her program, the family advocate program. She has a family advocate program and an outreach program. Through the health program with ASH, we have an ASH family advocate program. Okay, we have an outreach program. And what we want to do is to be able to allow enough people to learn what we've done. We've simplified it, we've condensed it, and we've made it very easy for people to access. But the ones that need it the most may not have the time because they just don't have the time to sit down and do it. So we ask that people are the advocates. I ask for you to research the scientists' work that we provide through the It Is Here Now program that will be coming on, through the websites that I share with you. Do your own research. If you can prove the science wrong, in fact, we have a good Samaritan that's put up $10,000. This so far is what he's collected up, and he said, if anybody can prove this science wrong, here's $10,000 for you. So we bless his heart as well, because he realizes science works. It's saved his life, it's saved his family's life, and it's now saved over 5,000 researchers around the world. This information is available over the internet, makes it very easy for folks. You know, I think back when in the Bible, we used to go to Sunday school, and they said, go ye into the world and preach the gospel to every creature. I believe it's John 3:16, if I remember right. And to me, gospel is truth. And I think this is what we're all looking for, is truth. And to be able to go into the world and preach the truth to everyone. And the internet is here as a resource. I know that when John said that and wrote that down, he didn't realize that we were going to have something as powerful as the internet. So for as long as we can keep it, folks, which may not be very, very long, we should make the best use of what we got and be good stewards. Get back our health. Get back our freedoms. Get back our right to live and be healthy and happy. Let's see, we've got a few minutes left. I want to kind of get off track there a little bit. And in my show, in my broadcast, what I want to do is always have a little place for outside the box. I think outside the box is a place we need to start bringing other people and just let them have a taste of what it's like to get outside the box. Because to tell you the truth, I'm never getting back in that box. Because I like it out here. I like what I see. I realize that the things I've thought for so many years were wrong. This is like a rebirth to get outside that box. And this is what we want to help people do. And so this year I did things a little different. I did come to California. I was tucked away on a hilltop in Idaho, where I thought I'd be remaining until the end of these days as we know it. But I was called through some divine intervention to come out of my little mountain hideaway. And now I'm back out with the populace. I'm down in a valley in Northern California. It's kind of like the bottom of a sludge pot, if you can imagine the chemtrails going over quite frequently, like 6 out of 7 days. It is causing a lot of problems with animals in the area, with people. And now I put myself kind of right back down here in this mess, but for a reason. I came down to help a gentleman through a family advocate program, told my family here, my sister and mother, and most of my family lives here in California, and said, well, I'm here for a couple weeks. Well, that was early part of May, folks, and I've been here the entire time since. My sister seemed to have gotten caught up. She's my baby sister. I was married and left home when she was about 2.5 years old. So I was kind of split away from her with my own family. And this has given me a chance to get back, get to know my sister. And what brought me here and kind of going to be here for a while is that she got caught in one of those foreclosure gate scams a few years back in 2007, actually, when it was first just ramping up. And she got sucked into one of these great mortgages that was going to just give her all this money. They inflated her property, inflated her payments, and she struggled for a couple of years. Had gone into a bank to say, well, is there some way we can redo this? Because the payments are so very high, she didn't expect the payments to actually end up being 70% of her gross income. Now, we're saying gross income. This is before taxes, folks. So she's bringing in an income, but this bank gives her this loan, and it comes out to be 77% of her gross income. So she was struggling for a couple of years. She's been a teacher, a preschool teacher for 20 years. So this is pretty much her home. The home happens to be an old family homestead. We've had a little farm, been in the family for over 100 years. When my father died, my sister, one of 7 children, decided that, we kind of decided for her. We asked her if she would not want to live there, take it over, and maintain the orchard and the little farm, and she reluctantly did. But unfortunately had to get a loan to take care of some of the repairs that needed done. It was a rather old place. Like I said, it's been around for 100 years. So she did a roof and new sewer and new things to keep it all up to code and everything, but didn't realize that they were going to scam her on the mortgage by any means, and all of a sudden found herself in a place where she needed to go in to see if she could get it refinanced. And they told her, well, no, let's not do a refinance, just go on a hardship. Well, her husband had been sick. Well, not a husband, he was a fiancé who had been sick. He was her other half. And so they were looking at a modification. The bank encouraged this. Well, the modification being promised, a month or 2 into it, her fiancé passed away from some health problems that had not been addressed. And with that loss, that put her even in a farther bind. So without working with her or anything except for promising this modification that was for sure going to happen. Just hang on. Don't worry, the house is going in foreclosure. Don't be worried about the foreclosure over here. Don't worry about what the right hand's doing while the left hand over here is building her up, setting her up for where when they got to the modification, they denied it, of course. So anyway, we've been down here kind of playing with this whole system. I'm getting a real good feel for what happened through the system, the banking system, the banksters, the foreclosure gate, and I do want to keep you folks updated on that. We are making headway. We have a wonderful county here. Most of our judicial officers and attorneys here are recognizing the fact that what's happening is who's getting hurt is the county itself. The banks, of course, aren't being hurt. The people are being hurt. People are moving out of their homes, but we decided to make a stand and to stick up for her right that she does own this property. No one is able to give clear title as yet, so we've asked everyone to please give us some proof that who owns this. Nobody seems to know. So we are hunkered down here and just waiting for a judge now to make a decision. So we want to keep you all posted on that. We know people are suffering all over the country. Homeless. I think this was probably one of the saddest Christmas for the masses of any year, probably since the Depression. So many people being displaced just before Christmas and no place to go and no place to call home. So we have things that we're dealing with. I heard a lot of the shows today on UNITEDWESTRIKE.com, talking about what's in these terrible trails that are being sprayed across our skies. It's a weatherization program, the aluminum, the strontium, the barium, but learning how to get these out. This is where we're at. We can't stop them from flying. This is going to take a while, and the great efforts are being done, of course, pleading with congressmen who really have turned off their hearing to anybody. I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but they really aren't listening, folks. So the thing to do is how do we live with the problem, and how do we provide a solution that's going to keep us healthy? So stay tuned. I also, as Karen mentioned, have the www.UnitedWeLight.com. This is where we hope to come together. I invite everyone, visit that website, UnitedWeLight, LIGHT.com. It's just giving a minute of our time to share together at 6 o'clock every evening for just 1 minute of prayer, 1 minute of hopeful thinking, 1 minute of meditation, whatever it takes, whatever you practice to be able to see the world as you want to see it, to make the world a better place.
Vickie.
And we're running out of time.
That's it. Thank you, Vickie, so much. You know, a heartfelt show, and we will see you again, and I am just honored to call you a friend.
Thank you, Karen. And I know we're just going to a break.
We are. We've got another show coming up, but again, Vickie, thank you for all your health information and blessings there. Stay tuned, folks, for Fly on the Wall Radio with David and special guest Michael Rivero. Vickie, we will talk soon. I love you, soul sister.
And I love you. Thanks for all you do, Karen.
You're listening to UnitedWeStrike.com radio. Don't buy, don't comply. Ask why. UnitedWeStrike.com radio.